I'm not ashamed.
What was Jethro's advice to Moses? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Exodus on walking through the Bible.
Of his word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Exodus chapter 18. We're going to be reading from verses 17 to 27. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Exodus chapter 18, beginning at verse 27. So Moses' father-in-law said to him, "The thing that you do is not good. Both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out, for this thing is too much for you. You are not able to perform it by yourself. Listen now to my voice. I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. Stand before God for the people, so that you may bring the difficulties to God. And you shall teach them the statutes and laws, and show them the way in which they must walk, and the work they must do. Moreover, you shall select from all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you, but every small matter they themselves shall judge. So it will be easier for you, for they will bear the burden with you. If you do this thing and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all this people will also go to their place in peace." So Moses heeded the voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he had said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel, and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. So they judged the people at all times. The hard cases they brought to Moses, but they judged every small case themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way to his own land. In this chapter, we have the children of Israel camping in Rephidim on their way to Mount Sinai. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, comes to meet Moses after hearing of the things that God did for Israel. In honor to God, he then offered sacrifices to God. In our last episode, we had Jethro observing how Moses judged Israel. The way the process worked is that if Israel had issues that needed judged, they then would come to Moses, and Moses would use God as the standard in making his judgments. The time that this consumed was significant, for on the day Jethro observed this, the judging process took all day and involved only Moses. Coming to today's reading, we have Jethro's reaction. The thing that he observed was not good. Was it not good because Moses was sinning? No, that's not what Jethro meant at all. He meant that the process wasn't good because it took up too much of Moses' time and was not only wearing him out, but it was wearing out the people and having to wait their turn to speak to Moses. You can almost picture in your head a person coming to Moses with an issue about their neighbor borrowing something and not returning it, and they needed Moses to make a judgment. Meanwhile, someone else might have been injured by their neighbor, something much more serious, and Moses would have had to make a judgment in that case as well. With Moses, the only one who knew the law of God, all these types of cases would have to be arbitrated by Moses. Jethro's advice was first to teach the people the statutes and laws of God and show them the way in which they must walk and the work they must do. With the people knowing what the law of God was would mean they wouldn't have to go and ask Moses if something was right or wrong, for they now would know. This would have the effect of cutting down the number of people to see Moses. His next piece of advice was for Moses to select from the people able men who feared God, men who hated covetousness and were men of truth, and he was to place them to be rulers over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. In other words, Jethro was telling Moses to set up a lower court system that could judge the small, insignificant matters. Selecting righteous men to do this would not only mean that judgments would be according to God's law, but it would instill confidence in the people that justice would be done. And not only that, but with the workload being shared, the cases could be dealt with quicker, theoretically making the people happier as well. The larger matters, or ones that still couldn't be resolved, would still need to be dealt with by Moses, but the sheer number of cases would be significantly smaller. In verse 23, we find that Jethro didn't dictate this advice as something that Moses must do. It was given as a suggestion. He founded it on two ifs. The first if was if Moses would agree to it. Jethro didn't assume that Moses didn't know best, but was hoping that Moses was able to take some advice. The second if was if God would command it. Jethro didn't know the situation. Maybe God had commanded Moses to judge this way, which if this was the case, would need to be continued. However, if God was agreeable to what Jethro had said, then Moses would be able to do it. If only more people acted this way today, then perhaps the church would be more united. It is obvious from verse 24 that God did approve of what Jethro had told Moses, for Moses did appoint those rulers among Israel to judge the smaller matters. Having completed his visit, Jethro returned to his own land, and we never meet him again. Some take the fact that Jethro returned to his own land or country as signifying that Israel couldn't be in what we call Saudi Arabia today, because at that time it was Midian. And since Jethro was from Midian, he would have thus been in his own land. But remember, the children of Israel were at Rephidim. That was not territory controlled by Jethro. Jethro was further west, closer to the Red Sea. What Moses is really recording for us here is that Jethro went home. I live in Canada, but I also live in Toronto. If I went to Niagara Falls to visit people and then said I was going home, people would understand what I meant. They wouldn't say, "But you are home, you're in Canada." They would recognize that I was saying that I was going to my house in Toronto. That is what Moses is saying here. And so, no, it doesn't contradict our contention that Israel was in fact in Arabia at this time and not in the Sinai Peninsula, as some believe. With that, our time is up for today. We will be taking just over a 3-week break, and we'll return, the Lord willing, on Monday, June 10th, 2019. When we return, we'll take up with Exodus 19, verses 1 to 9. We hope that you'll come back and join us in that discussion when we will continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
I'm not ashamed.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.
Of his cross.